Hey, hello everybody. This is Alita Spire, NMD with the Heat team. And what we do every Tuesday is we feature a superstar in our business. And I'm super excited tonight to have you meet one of our home run product people, and it's a Tower Garden. Troy Albright is the True Garden founder. He happens to live in Arizona, so I'm especially thrilled to interview him. He graduated from the University of Arizona in 1987 with a degree in pharmacy. Troy founded RX Formulations in 2002, focusing on natural bioidentical hormones for men and women, sterile IV admixture, PET compounding, topical creams and gels and consults, which has led to more of a holistic, integrative approach to health, nutrition, and wellness. Troy was always aware of the missing link in health link for most of his patients also was the lack of fresh quality food in their diet. And in 2013, Lisa and Troy Albright took matters in their own hands and founded True Garden. It's first of its kind facility operated by solar power and was designed with the vision to drastically reduce the region's agricultural water consumption while making local living produce available in the year-round in the hot desert regions of Phoenix and the southwest of the U.S. So I am super excited to feature Troy, and if we can spotlight him. I'm just basically, we're going to go through tonight is just talk a little bit about how Troy, well, let's ask you this first.
Sure.
How did you go from being a holistic practitioner to you purchased 2 towers, and then you went to 10, and then you went to this commercial garden? So what was the impetus of you doing that? What was the thing that got you to want to do that?
Well, it's interesting, as a compounding pharmacist, I get to control all the ingredients of what I'm making. And so when Nicole Nichols Perkins showed me the tower, I'm like, wow, wait a minute. I can control the water. I can control the nutrients. I can control what's being sprayed on this. I'm like, what a great idea. It's just like, and it's just an extension of what I was doing. And then as I was looking at my patients, so I got into the nutritional consults and the diabetic consults and pain management. And I realized that the foods that these patients of mine were eating were affecting their health. So my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents had always been farmers. So we already knew what good food was. But the problem was, as farmers, we believed everything the government said, and we used thousands of gallons of DDT on our crops. Mm. And so I've learned that just because our government says it's safe doesn't mean it's safe to use, because there's that exposure over and over again. And so when I look at my family, we have lots of different issues with dementia, Alzheimer's, slow learning, speech impairments. And I see this in my cousins as well that are still farmers today. So as we went down this path, we started with those 2 towers. The neighbor and I decided these 2 towers, we can't believe how much food it's able to grow. And I was amazed because here I've been planting in the soil here in Arizona, which is this red clay stuff, compared to the stuff in Minnesota. It was this black, beautiful dirt. So here we had this red clay stuff, and we had to really work it hard. And we had all these weeds and there's animals, things that we had to deal with, because here in Arizona, when you put water in the ground, you get gophers. Well, we never had gophers in Minnesota. I mean, not in our fields. And so I was just amazed at all the gophers, all the nutgrass, the weeds that we're constantly pulling up to keep our crops from being smothered by the weeds. So the tower was a great way to control that. And the freshness, that's the first thing everybody that walks onto my farm and tastes the produce will say, how clean the produce tastes. The chefs are like, it's so clean. It doesn't have that dirt taste, or it doesn't have a taste of, it looks like arugula, but it doesn't taste like arugula. We get those comments all the time because the produce just pops with flavor. The aroma, it's living food. So as we went down this pathway, the neighbor and I, we decided to build a greenhouse. And we just built a little, 12 by 20 greenhouse. We didn't really know anything about it. And Alita's going to put that on screen here. And we built this Victorian greenhouse in his backyard. And as you can see, the greenhouse, we've got 10 towers in there. So we went from 2 towers to 10 towers. And you can still see we have raised beds there, and we're growing our carrots and radishes and different things. Inside the greenhouse, we had 10 towers. And back then, there was no real support for going taller, but we just went and made them taller. We made them 11 pots tall. And we were producing enough food for 4 families of 4. I mean, we could have easily fed 16 people with these 10 towers. And we're talking about really not knowing how to grow in these towers. We're just using our expertise as soil farmers. And it was so much easier. The issue that we made here is we didn't build it tall enough, especially here in Arizona. Even though you can see in the background we live in an orchard, we still didn't build it tall enough. So the top of our towers were getting some burn on them from all the heat. But again, we were novices. We didn't know what we're really doing. We were just playing around. And so we got really excited when we saw how much food we could grow just with the 10 towers, and how clean the food tasted, how it really just helped us physically feel better. And that's when my wife and I decided, well, we own a compounding pharmacy. We have an acre of property there. Let's go and build a greenhouse and bring this to the community. And so that's what we decided to do. So we went, and again, Troy never does anything small, and this always gets me in trouble, decided to build a 5,000 square foot greenhouse and have 320 towers inside that greenhouse, and 150 to 180 towers outside the greenhouse. So we have about 500 towers on the campus. And here's a picture of our greenhouse in Mesa, Arizona, a suburb of Phoenix. And you can see just how beautiful it is. They talk about a greenhouse height as being to the gutters. So the side walls go to 16 feet. And then it goes to the peak, because it's an A-frame greenhouse. It goes to the peak at 23 feet. So we got plenty of space above these towers. As you can see, these towers are actually 13 pots tall. Typically, they only will go 11 pots tall because you get a lot of shading down below. But since we're so close to the equator here, we can get by with it. And so in our greenhouse, we can grow over 16,000 living plants at any given time. And we've now are going into our 3rd year here with our greenhouse. So we've got almost 3 summers under our belt. And we realize that this greenhouse will be the prototype that will be built around the world, especially in arid regions, because 70% of the world, 73% of the world is desert. And water's a commodity. So when you look around the world, and even in Arizona, if you don't have water, you're not going to grow anything. And then if you do have water, do you have enough clean water to supply what you need? Well, the towers intrigued me by the fact that you can use 90 to 98% less water depending on what you're growing. And then 90% less space because we're going vertical. So I was so jazzed. I mean, by building the greenhouse, that shows you how in we are in to just being part of this tower garden movement. We firmly believe that growing vertical is part of the solution this generation needs to solve. Because to feed the world with the current paradigm that we have, using soil and fertilizers and all the genetically modified seeds and things like that, that's just poisoning us more. It's important that we take our own health into our hands, and it starts with the foods we eat. So that's why we built the greenhouse. We wanted to get into serving the community and showing them that they can do this too. But we realize this is actually a global movement. Now that Tower Garden Future Growing has been merged with the Juice Plus company. So it's not only the residential side now we have access to the commercial side. And that makes me even more excited, because when I went to my 10 towers, we didn't really have that kind of support. And now there's, as you saw in that previous slide, there's 12 ACRs. That stands for accredited commercial representatives that are allowed now to sell farms for Juice Plus Tower Garden division. But as a Juice Plus rep, this gives us really a segue into not only can we supply the residential side with a single tower or a trio family garden, or now we even have the community garden. I mean, these are all things that we can bring into our community to get people to start growing their own food, because they're going to be healthier. when you look at the nutritional density of the produce this tower grows, it's by far superior to anything you'll ever buy, even in a local farmer's market. Because we're controlling the nutrients, we're controlling the water, we're controlling the environment. I mean, when you think about it, you know what's been sprayed on it. And do you realize that most things that come into the United States are being sprayed, but when they come into Arizona, they're also being sprayed. So it can leave the farm as organic, cross state lines, and it's being sprayed. I mean, doesn't that drive you crazy? So here it's considered organic, and organic's becoming a really whitewashed word now. So it's important that we take this health into our own hands and know what's been actually sprayed on our foods. And even things coming out of Mexico. I mean, since we're so close to Mexico here, those things are coming in USDA organic. It's hard for me to believe because they're using wastewater on lots of their crops. So I don't know how you consider human waste as being part of that organic movement. So again, knowing where your food's coming from, knowing your farmer is important. And that's what's driven me to build a greenhouse, to actually bring it to the community. And I know that in time, Juice Plus is going to launch this worldwide because we're already in 25 countries with our other products. And this just goes along with it. And so those of you that have team throughout the world, this is going to be something they can also do in their countries. There's a soft launch being done right now in certain parts of the world. So by the fall, that's going to happen. And then hopefully by this time next year, there'll be a full launch in Europe in all those different countries that we already offer products. So I'm really excited about what the future is, because not only are we bridging the gap with all the different Juice Plus products, but ultimately if you can grow the food and eat it along with these other products, you're going to be healthier. I mean, my patients are missing the boat. There's a lot of products out there that are being pushed as, well, who has the time to go and make this organic meal using quinoa and, fruits and vegetables, and it's going to cost you $30 to buy all these healthy foods when you can just drink it in this little packet. There's a lot of products out there being sold right now that are being pushed like that. Well, just drink this. It's less than $3 a meal. I'm sorry, but those things don't replace real food. And what Juice Plus is offering is real food. Even our supplements, actually we can't even call them supplements, they're nutritional aids that actually are helping us bridge that gap. Because we want our customers, our friends and family to be healthy. And it starts with what we put in and on our body. So I'm very jazzed about it. I'm excited about it. I get sometimes overwhelmed about it. And again, it's an opportunity, Alita, that the rest of us can actually learn to utilize the different tools that we have. And I think I sent you a slide on the community garden.
Yeah, I did. I was going to mention to you, I can hear your enthusiasm and your excitement. And so I know we have some people that are prospects on this call and people that are kind of looking at the garden. And, a lot of times people want to look at your garden, the big commercial garden, and they think, oh, I'm going to do that. But really the right thing to do is start off with 3 or 10 so that you're able to, ease into that whole process, right?
I agree, Alita. It's really important. It's really important that I started out with 2. We went 3-4 months, and then it's like, okay, I need another 7 of these. And I think Nicole was overwhelmed with the fact that went from being a soil farmer to where I'm willing to look at this, and we built a little greenhouse. But yes, start with a couple and learn the different ins and out of it. It is by far the simplest garden I've ever done because you never have to weed. You don't have issues with bugs. I mean, since you have 70% less bugs because there's no soil, it doesn't mean you won't get bugs because aphids are not our friends, but aphids are all over the world that we're finding out. So it's not that you'll not have bugs, you'll have less bugs because you're not using soil. And the biggest issue that our government, USDA and FDA, is focusing on is food safety. So the fact that our food is not on the ground, that it's off the ground, you don't have to worry about E. coli. You don't have to worry about what's upstream from your house or your farm, that you might have a pig farm or a horse farm or something like that, and you get a flash flood and it washes everything into your lettuce field or your your onion field. Next thing you know, those still get harvested and sent to market. And now you have this big E. coli outbreak. So, oh, my dogs are barking here. Okay.
So, Troy, I am, oh.
I'm going to shut the door so they can't
Okay.
bother
I
us
am
here.
sure that we could probably have you on a call once every quarter because you are so full of so much information. But I'm afraid we're not going to get to some of the questions and some of the, perceived questions people might have.
Exactly.
How do you feel about like maybe what to plant, what temperature control, some of your frequently asked questions, if you can address a few of those, that would be great.
Sure. I always tell people, let's plant what you love to eat. Too many times, quiet guys, too many times we plant things to experiment. And I always say, plant what you love to eat. What do you love to eat? And then you start with things that are, if you love basil, like I love basil, I love kale, I love Swiss chard and all those kind of things. So the things that grow upwards, you want to put on the top of your tower. So when you look at a residential tower, you can put your basil, your Swiss chard, your kale, things that reach upwards, celery and things like that. You can reach upward and they grow up. And then the middle of your tower, that's where you put more of the things like your lettuces, more round type things, arugula, those kind of things. And then at the bottom of your tower is where you want to put your fruiting crops such as tomatoes, zucchinis, cucumbers, and squashes. And that way those can actually grow upwards. And again, you put too many of those big leaf, broadleaf things on your tower, you've got to be ready to trim those things. And that's one of the biggest issues I see. They start growing and it looks beautiful. You're like, oh, I don't want to cut it. But you want to cut those leaves back and train your plants. Otherwise, they can just take over your tower completely. So you want to build it like a pyramid. Things that are on top that reach upward, medium growth stuff in the middle, your lettuces and different varieties of things like that. And then your broadleaf things at the bottom. And that way you'll be successful at growing on your tower.
Great, Troy. And so what about the whole issue of water? Oh, if somebody has an open phone, maybe they can mute their phone. What about the issues of water, especially in at summertime and stuff? Like how often we were always told we should add tonic every other time. And, and how do you know how much you're putting in there? Like, is there like some kind of a standard answer you give people?
You know what? I like making like a 5-gallon barrel up of my tonic solution. And that way I know that it's completely mixed. And that way, every time I add water, I'm adding the A and B nutrients. When it gets above 90 and stays there, like those of us that live in the desert, that's when we start cutting the tonic in half, if that makes sense. So instead of adding 20 mils per gallon, you'd only add 10 mils per gallon. So any of us that live in, the Las Vegas, Chico, different places, Bullhead City, where it's constantly hot, we're using only 10 mils per gallon. And then if we start getting algae buildup, we'll even cut it back to 5 mils per gallon. Because just think about it. If you're hot and drinking lots of water, our plants are the same way. So when we are hot, like summertime here, we don't eat as much food, or our plants are the same way. So we got to cut back on the amount of tonic A and B. So as a rule of thumb, once you get above 90 degrees, then we cut the tonic solution in half. So then people say, well, how do I know if I need to increase or decrease it? Well, if you start seeing your leaves become a little yellowish in color, we call it chartreuse, like a yellow splattering on them, that means they need more nutrients. But again, summertime like we're here in Arizona, we're drinking lots more water. So we've cut our nutrients in half, and that's what we're giving our towers right now, is 50% of what we normally would. Does that make sense to everybody? That's a great question. I want everybody to understand that.
Right, and they can listen to it again if it didn't.
Okay. And the other thing I want to touch on, Alita, is here in Arizona, our water has a lot of salt in it. We live in the Salt River Valley. So we've got to filter that water. Because it's not chlorine that's going to be the issue. It's the chloramines, the dissolved solids that's in it. And salt, sodium chloride, will actually kill our plants. Because if you get enough dissolved solids in your water, the plants can uptake the nutrients. So you can have perfect nutrient water, A and B, but if that water is so concentrated with salt and other things, those plants won't be able to take up those nutrients. So it's important that you have some sort of good filter on your input of your water. Or if you get in well water and you know it's good quality, then that's great. But if you're having a hard time growing in your tower, you got to look at the water supply. And that's what I love about growing in my own tower. We have a big reverse osmosis system, and we're starting with very, very clean water.
So Troy, I want to spend a little time talking to you about how you support your local community and what other tower garden farmers should be doing when they have a commercial garden. And what does the company do to compensate somebody if they do have somebody that wants to put in a big commercial garden? Where is your part in that?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. So first of all, yes, our goal is we're trying to be a regional urban farm for the region of the West Coast here. Mm-hmm. And there's some other farms in California, Santa Barbara, and different things. But my goal, and as well as Tim Blank and the rest of the leadership, is to have an urban farm in every major metropolitan city. That way, that urban farm will be a hub to support all the towers, all the growers, all the representatives, anybody that buys a tower. So that's the goal, is to get an urban farm, and that way that urban farm will be the hub to educate the reps, because we know you're not going to know everything about these towers. And so as you go to sell towers, if you have an urban farm in your area, you'll actually send them to the class, and that way they can learn how to do this from the experts. And then we send them back to you to keep in touch with them, and that way they don't get frustrated or if they have questions on this. So as a rep, if you're already a representative and you have a referral, the company is now actually compensating you 10% for that referral on the towers, on the tower portion. So, and then there's 2.5% that goes up 4 levels. So it does go up the upline as well. The goal would be to have that new tower farm become part of your downline. That would be the goal. So that way, also then the revenue as towers are sold through that farm, because they're going to have a big urban impact on that area. So that way they become part of your team. And then we'll be part of supporting that farm as well with shadowing. So right now we have new farmers come into our place and shadowing for 2 to 5 days. So they leave knowing how to run their farm based on how Tim Blank really set it up. There's some farms out there that haven't ever gone through the shadowing, and they've just learned on their own. If they would have actually been able to not make some of the mistakes that they made. But again, it's all a learning process. So our goal is here to be a support for the Southwest region on all these different types of farms that are going in.
All right. And we have about 4 or 5 minutes and 2 questions. One, I know you're going to give us a big surprise at the end of the call. And then 2, a lot of the people in warmer climates have a problem with having their garden too alkaline. So do they keep adding more minus to it? Some have bought some super concentrated acid at a hydroponic store. Is that recommended? And what would be your take on that?
Right. So again, there's different filters out there that will actually bring the alkalinity down. The goal is to keep that tower between 5 and 7. What we've noticed here in Arizona, that as temperature goes up, alkalinity goes up. As long as our plants are looking healthy, we don't sit there and try to keep dumping all this acid back into our tower, because if they're growing great, is that really an issue? The issue is if you get too many dissolved solids in that reservoir, that 20-gallon reservoir, then your plants won't absorb the nutrients. So what we're really telling people every 3 months to do, every 3 to 4 months, is to dump the reservoir and refresh that reservoir, especially going into summer. That way you can get through summer. You might be a little bit of alkaline, but if your plants are growing great, so that I think that was Jenny that had asked that question. If your plants are growing great and you're 7.5, we let those towers go. Let those towers go. We don't just dump it, because if they're, again, it's looking great and the dissolved solids is down. We call it EC. We measure the electrical conductivity in our towers, which is a little more advanced because I'm a chemist, but it's really easy. When we have a meter, we stick it in there and it tells us what the EC is. And if it's above 3.5, 4, we dump that water. And that typically is every 3 to 4 months.
Wow. You know, I think we make it so much more complicated. I think when my towers look the best, I just threw a hose in it.
And there's sometimes here in Arizona, Lita, when we're on well water, that works fine. But then when we go back to canal water or Colorado water, then we see a lot more salt, salt in our water. So you got to look at your area that you live in.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So Troy has a special offer for all of us on here before we all unmute and go to gallery view. Troy, would you like to share a little bit about what your thoughts were?
Review on
the code.
Oh, yes. So what we're doing is we're offering anybody that's listening to these calls, and you can share this code. It's TRUE17, capital TRUE, then 17. If you use that code, that'll allow you to buy seedlings from True Garden instead of $2 a seedling, they're for $1.50. And that's good through the end of the year here. Actually, it might be good for a year, but it'll at least go through the end of the year. So that way you can actually try out seedlings. I don't know if any of you have used our seedlings from True Garden or not. I get the comment all the time, we've ordered your seedlings and they seem to do better. Why is that? Well, we're very fortunate here in Arizona because our sun is so intense. When we bring our seedlings out of the greenhouse and harden those seedlings off in that sun, they really can actually handle the weather in any part of the country. And then we've been explicitly trained. Tim Blank came and retrained us all 18 months ago. So our goal is never to send you anything with any type of bug on it. If you get our seedlings and within 7 days you get aphids, that came from my farm. And I need to know that. You can send me an email and we'll replace those seedlings. But after 7 days, if it's, I had someone send me an email, hey, I finally got I got aphids in my plants. Well, they've had my seedlings for 3 months already, and they just finally got aphids. So just because you're growing inside doesn't mean you're not going to get aphids. But if they come and you get aphids within 7 days, it probably came from the farm that you bought the seedlings from, if that makes sense. So the special offer is you can order using that code, that promo code from www.truegarden.com. Put in the promo code TRUE, capital TRUE 17, and that'll allow you to buy those seedlings 25% off for $1.50. And in time, I'm going to put other things on there that you can buy, rock wool and different things on discount too.
So Bunny says she loves your seedlings and she likes how you package them. So obviously you ship everywhere, right?
Yes. I've even had requests to ship to Hawaii. You can't order off my website in Hawaii, but if you send me an email, we'll arrange to ship to Hawaii. Anything that we ship to Hawaii costs more, but I was able to ship to Hawaii for, gosh, $30. And that was through the USP, United States Postal Service, priority mail, and they got there beautiful. Actually, I had better luck shipping to Hawaii than shipping to Texas. Figure that out. So
would your email address be Troy at RX Formulations, or do you want to have another one? If it's a question about pharmacy, then it would be the Troy at rxformulations.net. Okay. But if it's all about farming or seedlings or questions about what other, what can I do to be better at this, then that'd be at Troy at truegarden.com. Okay. Okay. All right. We started a little bit later, but we are at 6:32. If anybody has a burning question they can't stand, that has to ask them, you can unmute yourself and ask it. All right, so maybe you can all unmute yourself and we can give Troy a big thank you and really appreciate you joining us.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Troy.
Best seedlings ever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. And Alita, I'll do this as often as you want me to, okay?
That'd be awesome. Maybe quarterly.
Sure. You let me know and I'll put it on the schedule.
Thank you so much, Troy.
You're
Troy,
very
would
welcome.
you ever?
We have to replant our gardens.
Exactly.
So
Was
Troy,
it-
would you be willing to do like a three-way with somebody who wanted to do a community garden kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just need to schedule it.
Right.